Hi, and welcome to the Bigger, Better, More podcast with Hoku and Emily. We'll be having high vibrational conversations about everything, from where we are to where we're headed. Stay tuned for the full episode.
How are you? How's your day going?
Good. I'm glad you wanted to call because I needed a break. Been cleaning out my storage unit, so I'm happy to.
That can be done in small sequences, or small fragments. Yeah.
That's what I've been doing, kind of going back and forth, but I'm good. I'm glad to have an excuse not to do it right now. So how are you?
I just felt so called to it.
Oh, good.
Well, I went to this yoga class, and it was amazing. It was so funny because I just was really wanting to listen to what felt like the next best thing to do, right? And that felt like this class, which was an hour and a half. Usually I wouldn't do that. But I went, and the teacher was some sort of magical light being Yoda figure. I loved her. She was so cool.
Good.
And she was like, you know how the word has been fun, right? That's been my word, and now you've adopted that as well. So we start the class. Never have I ever, I'm sure it's happened, I just haven't experienced it, never have I ever been in a yoga class and had the teacher emphasize fun at the beginning of the class. And she went into a whole thing about having fun in the process of the class. And then at the end, she closed it with reminding us all of our divinity and alignment and clarity. And I just was like, oh, okay, this is cool.
It's the universe saying, I meant what I said.
Right. Well, and so I got back to the apartment and I wrote down a couple of things that I wanted to go over with you because they felt really important, and it's what kind of came up in this yoga class, which, by the way, was one where it was easy and fun. That was the intention set, and that was what happened. And so then I wrote down spiritual discipline, and then the spiritual discipline, choosing you is choosing others. You get the shit you put up with, and then surrendering to your highest good and how that doesn't always look how you think it will. So these were just the things that came up that I wanted to talk about with you.
Yeah, and we've been talking about at least some of those a little bit, so that's great.
Right, exactly. Okay.
I'm so glad you made a list.
Where shall we begin? I made a list. I was just really called to talk to you and get a chance to run with the wild horses, as you said. So here we are.
What was the first one again?
First one was spiritual discipline.
Well, the thing is that it feels like that might not be a good thing, but it's not the old definition of what we thought discipline was. Discipline's doing something we don't want to do necessarily. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about spiritual discipline is, and this is according to my guides, the only spiritual discipline you need is to know when you feel good or when you feel bad. Because if you can feel that, you can feel what your alignment is and when it's not. I've made the joke recently, it's like we're playing, a big game of hot and cold with the universe. The closer we get, the more aligned, the better it feels. The further away, the more, misaligned, the worse it feels. So it's that hot and cold thing. But it's perfect, because if you pay attention, your natural response to things, and they're saying it's that doesn't mean triggered response. That means when it's landing on who you really are instead of who you thought you should be. And again, this brings in why it's important to be who you are, because if you're who you think you should be, you will always be out of alignment, because that's not the reality. The reality is you're only this person, and the true alignment of yourself, not the facade you want to put on, right? Am I going too far with this?
No, you're making perfect sense. I did want to ask you though, so you just mentioned the trigger word, right? So the triggered reaction versus the actual alignment with who you are. So yeah, can you speak more to that? Because I feel like it can get somewhat, at least in the old way, confusing in terms, of if you're upset with,
it's to know,
or checking where you're at. Yeah.
Right, because we can think ourselves out of alignment. You could say, I should be better than that. And so there's no real place for alignment to happen with you if you're constantly thinking you're not right. Does that make sense? It's like the false self is it's a paper bag you put over yourself and you adorn it in however you want. It's but that's not who you are. That's who, the put on is. And the put on doesn't always match who you really are. I mean, that's what we're doing a lot, is kind of moving from the mundane perspective of, I should be this, and I should be because. And it's most of us are trying to find alignments and feel okay in the world. Well, not most of us. Some of us already have it. But, people are trying to be okay in the world. And they got taught a way that was conditional. It was in limitation. It was in fear. It was in judgment. And that's what we're trying to free ourselves from, is all those aspects of I should be this way that aren't a reality. And most of the should be's are not. Who you really are shows up as rightness of being, as clarity, as ease, as yes, I am this, regardless of what it is. There's a natural acceptance of isness. My guys always say there's no design flaw in us. There's just misunderstanding. It's we misunderstand who we're supposed to be. There's no design flaw with you. If you were in alignment and allowed yourself to be in true alignment, your life would flow easily. But you're thinking you need to be something that either you are already, and thinking you need it negates the fact that you're already it. I remember I've told you this, but they're just popping it in my mind. I used to work with this model. She was amazingly beautiful, stunning, and she was mixed race, and she had a real judgment on herself as, not beautiful because she had been teased kind of mercilessly when she was a child. And so she never felt good about herself, and she never got the benefit of being beautiful because she always felt bad about herself. In a weird way, it actually triggered her, but it was trying to trigger her into being the reality of herself instead of the false sense of herself. I mean, that's what a lot of what we're letting go of. But to do that, and that's where you'd say, the universe helps us by triggering us at things that aren't really real. And that's why, it actually does work, because they're saying it's things that don't feel bad aren't in alignment with you. So it doesn't matter if you're getting triggered old stuff or, what's actually not yours. So you can do that. You can say feels bad, not in alignment. So I don't, but they're saying it's once you know it's not in alignment with you, you can let it go if you're willing to let it go. But then again, you have to be willing to go, which kind of has consciousness attached to it. You have to be awake and aware enough to see the patterning of what you're doing and why you're trying to do it. A lot of people are trying to prove that they're good enough. And I want to say that's a futile thing to do. There is no proving you're good enough. You are good enough. There is no value assessment on you as a human being. You get to be the version of human being you came in to be. But you came in to be a divine human, and that's a different thing now. And that's why we're shedding all this old. And that, they're saying it's we try and make it as simple as possible by saying feels good in alignment, doesn't feel good not, because we get overwhelmed with what's right and what's wrong in accordance to too many things that are not us. The world says it. My mom says it. It should be this way. I'm a woman, so I should be this way. And it's no, who are you really? Because that's your true alignment. And what you're being in the world is meant to be in the world to support the world in its growth. And that's where it's a lot of people who get hooked up in this, I'm wrong because the world doesn't accept me at this level. It's yeah, because the world needs to grow. Not necessarily because you're bad and wrong.
So the spiritual discipline is coming back to your own alignment.
Yeah, but it's also being conscious of it. Because the problem is that again, I don't want to make vast generalities. A lot of us have gotten used to feeling bad and letting that be okay. And then we just run fear. I mean, that's, and with good reason. Like, when you have a violent childhood or one of neglect or, things, being very pointy around you, it's like you learn how to survive that. And it's usually this patterning that comes up. We go into fear states. We feel judged. We feel like we have to protect ourselves, and we start accommodating that way, and that becomes the lens we see the world through. So it's a lot of recreating the sameness because we know how to keep it together. And it's like, that's the point. We don't want to keep it together anymore. Anything that feels bad, why? Why are we holding that to us? Why are we trying to make it okay? And we were taught previously to fix it and make it okay, and you must be wrong because the world's okay and you must be wrong, right? It's like, it cycles again. And they're saying, but it's like, it's not. And the world's not wrong either. We're just evolving. The potential is becoming conscious and clear in what you want and what you don't want. But my supposition is we don't want to invite bad feeling spaces to live with us. We don't want fear. We don't want, all of the things that comes with that. We don't want judgment on ourselves or others because it diminishes us all, and they're saying it also anchors it there. If you say, I am this way, and you anchor it in, I have no freedom to be anything else from you. You're going to view me through that lens. And the same thing happens to ourselves. It's like we anchor in a way, oh, I'm bad and wrong because I was treated poorly, so I must be. And it's like, I get it. That makes sense because nothing else makes sense. Like, why would I be abused if there wasn't something wrong with me? And it's like, but it's not. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of people who don't know how to act in this world, and misbehave and blame it on other people. And, and then here we are. But I don't want that to be an excuse. I want you to be free in doing you, being you, and opening up to who you are, no matter what the circumstance, because we all need the freedom of that growth potential, because otherwise it's too dire to live in the world and have it just be as it is, at least for us and those potentially listening to us. There's something more that we're being called to, but it's not a description given by the mundane world. It's a description given by our inner knowing and what feels best to us. And back to, that's the only spiritual discipline, is this in alignment with who you are or not? And innately, you know what that is, not in your head, in your gut, in your heart, in your, na'au, in every place in you, in the inside of you that is you, that's the real you and not the put on version of you. You have that. And they're saying it's like, and we forwarded to triggers. It's like, but the triggers need to go too. Everything's alerting you to, I'm a thing that's here and doesn't feel good, which means you're out of alignment. Do you still want me here? And the truth is that as you evolve, you can't hold those spaces. They're just going to get louder and uglier until you're willing to let it go. And some of those things we've used as protection, or, it's like my brick walls were great at keeping me protected, not very great at connecting with other people. It's like those are the things. It's like we need to stop using the ways we used to survive our, childhood or our mundane life, our misunderstandings of who we thought we were, to become who we really are and start to thrive in those spaces. And that's the thing. They made it as easy as possible. And they're saying, we've talked about this before too. It's like, it's a have to or a get to. And that's a positioning of, it's like, some people can't always tap into what feels good and what doesn't because we're so used to like jumping back and forth or just kind of having a layer of fear underneath everything. And so we never get a clear read on that. But if you ask yourself, is this a have to, like I have to do it and what a drag? Or is it a get to, like that's exciting? And it's like you can pretty much separate it off and it very well will align with what feels good and what feels bad. But that's our innate knowing. And we've been told that must be wrong and inaccurate this whole time. And it's like, no, it's exactly right for us. It's not right necessarily for the entire world. But that's where it's like, that's where it helps to accept other people and where they are and what they're doing and all of that. So we don't keep like, running people into the ground with our old expectations of it should be this way. Should be nothing. Should's an indicator, one of those red flag words that says I'm pointed in the wrong direction.
We have this kind of movement of mental health awareness going on in this time period, right? There's mental health awareness and, quote, doing the work. It's become more and more popular and more common, especially with social media and, the expansion of therapy, evolution of therapy and different tools that we can use in the mundane world, but also move potentially in a more evolved way. But I wanted to clarify about the spiritual discipline. Do you feel like that is not only doing the work, but walking the walk? The spiritual discipline is talking the talk, doing the work, learning, becoming aware, and then walking the walk. Is it effort? Is it not effort? How do you define it?
I prefer it not to be effort, personally. I mean, we get to choose our paths and how it is. I say by intention and by allowing, because those are the easiest ways to do it. But that's always my perspective. It's how can I do this easily? And my guidance usually gives me that as well. But it's the allowing of the new is way easier than the letting go of the old, because there were so many burdens kind of put on us about that and kind of peeling them off when they were the things that made us feel safe, like, kind of fitting in makes you feel safe. That's the opportunity, is to realize, and they're saying, realize who you really are, because in your divinity, you will start feeling the kind of power that lights you up. And we talked about this with you having conversation, that you feel, really clear and really empowered and really present to. And it's like, yeah, that's who you really are, having a conversation. And it feels so much better and dynamic than the rerunning conversations or trying to be okay or pre-paving conversations to interact in a way that's satisfactory. It's like, it's such a low bar to me. It's like the opportunity is to really get to, thrive as our true being, but you got to get to your true being first. And some of us are like so spun around in the mundane, we don't know where to go. But it's like, that's where it's like, find the feel good spaces, find those aligned spaces, and you'll start tapping into the connected reality of what's next. But you've got to notice that. And that's, again, the spiritual discipline part, but also recognizing where you want to be, because, and this comes from me having been a depressed person, I kind of thought, this is the way the world is. I am not going to win here. I don't even know how to thrive or survive. It's like, it's all too much, because it never seemed like there was an opening for it. And it's like, but now there is. And I feel like I was about to say it's clear, and I want to say it's not always clear, but it's always calling us forward, because our true selves want to be known. The problem is that most of our lives we've been steady pushing that down, saying, shut up, you're going to get me in trouble. It's like, now the opportunity gets to be that part that we really are, and allow the world to meet us there. But again, it takes a little bit of, cleaning up where you are. A lot of cleaning up.
Right, and that would be the doing the work part. I mean, I think it feels like the reason that keeps coming up is also because I keep getting this image. I remember you talking about someone you knew who had a lot of signs. We've talked about this before, but bringing it back to the signage and the verbiage and the awareness is great, but without the spiritual discipline and the actual walking the walk of it, it doesn't necessarily get you anywhere. Well, right? It's a feeling space. It's not a head space necessarily.
Correct. I mean, because your thinking will evolve. And if you're in your thinking space, you're likely not in the evolved space. And your feeling space is the most present you can be, in the being yourself. But they're backing me up a little bit, because one of the things, I was getting a little triggered because you kept saying doing the work. And
I know.
It was.
I don't know why that keeps coming up.
No, I know, because it is. I want to say kind of the mundane perspective on it. It's like you got to go in and do it, and it's hard and everything. And it's like sometimes it is, and it's rewarding. So it's like I want to say what you just said of walking the walk is more of what we're talking about. That's alignment. We're talking about walking it forward. We're saying, yes, you're not going to do everything you want to do right, but that's not the point. The point is, okay, I did this and this is what I wanted, and then there's an opportunity to choose. My guides always say life is a 1 or 2 step process. You choose something, you like it, great. Or you choose something you don't like it, great. Because then you more likely know what you do want. So it's not a bad thing to go to, what you don't want, because it immediately tells you more. But we get all caught up in that we're supposed to be right constantly. I can't make a wrong decision. And that's trained into us because we get harassed for being wrong, for making poor decisions, for, doing things. It's like, that's the opportunity to learn. That's the opportunity to move it forward. Oh, that didn't get me what I want. What do I want instead? But we're not, that's not how it goes for us. We do something wrong and then we berate ourselves for, a day, a month, a year for whatever it was, feel bad about it. And it's like, no, this is where we get to take the opportunity to be who we are and say, you know what, that was bad. That didn't align with me. That's why I'm not doing it again. But move it forward. So many people get stuck like, that's a mud puddle pretty much, and cyclical ways of being will get worse and worse and worse. Why? Because the universe is trying to move you from those spaces. And if it gets worse, you might look for something. Unfortunately, it gets interpreted as this is plaguing me, or it keeps showing up. And it's like, why does it keep showing up? Why do you keep dating the same person? Why do you keep, not you personally, but why do you keep having the same relationships? It's like, because it's trying to show you how you're participating in relationships, what your expectations are, how you've been playing it out, and the opportunity to grow in it. Like, none of that is bad and wrong. And we say, oh, I don't get along with this person for 2 seconds, and we get upset about it, and we must be wrong and bad. And it's like, blah, 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 blah. It's like, can we give ourselves the grace that we do children to grow and learn who they are? Because we're still doing it. At my age, I'm still doing it. I'm not the fullness of who I'm truly am. And that's the adventure ahead, is I get to have this experience of knowing it. But a lot of people think who they are is really a bad and wrong and maybe shouldn't be. And that sucks. Because none of that is true, no matter what. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I know I got off track, but I'll come back.
No, that was great. Well, and because it brings me to the next part, which was the choosing, because you mentioned that already. So choosing you is choosing others as well. Like, this doesn't need to be you or other people or other experiences.
It's something... the truth is I'm going to air quote work. What there is to do is to line up with yourself and realize what that is and what it's not. Because that's the opportunity. And in you choosing who I've said this before, it's like, I want to be a person who loves. I am not 100% all that all the time, because I still have, stuff I bump up against. Things make me angry, and I have a difficulty walking it forward to love sometimes. But that's the endeavor for me, because I know that is what I want to be. I want to be a person who loves. Now, am I going to be the fullness of that? Hopefully one day. And if not, I still get to move in that direction. That's the opportunity, but it's a choosing. And this is what they were going to say. I had a client that was, they wanted more love, and it's like, but they weren't really loving themselves. And it is that once you set the standard of, I love myself and I'm going to do good things for me, and that becomes the standard, that's what you will allow from other people. But if you don't love yourself, you will allow people who don't love you, who will be disrespectful, who won't honor you, who will, it just becomes a very less than optimal circumstance. And then we think this is the way it is. This is the way relationships are. And it's like, no, it's not.
Well, to clarify too, okay, so if you're not loving yourself first, even if you then are with a partner, who is loving you, you can't feel it.
Right, because if you don't think you're lovable, how are you going to let somebody love you? I'm sorry, I have to let my dog out.
Yourself.
Hold on.
Oh, that's okay. I love that she's like part of the conversation.
I apologize. She just wasn't going to have it, so it was fine. Okay, say what you were just saying again.
Well, it's just allowing the love in, but then that actually brings me to the other point that is connected, which was something you said the other day, which was I'm sorry, I'm going to use this word, but you get the shit you put up with.
Yes. Well, it's also,
I love that was so simple.
Well,
you get the shit you put up with. Sorry, take it.
This is
the
thing. If you look at you're choosing your life, you don't have to choose what is, but it's kind of as an exercise. I say, I always tell people, let what is be okay. Like, choose it. Say, okay, this is the landscape I'm dealing with right now. And then choose how you want to move forward in it. Because as we make our choices, you're going to choose what's ahead of you. You're not choosing, like, I want to be more loving. It's like, but tomorrow I might not be that fullness of loving. Now, I'm not going to be upset about that because I'm just going to keep walking it forward until I get where I get. And that's the opportunity to every day evolve more into what you're doing. But, oh shoot, I'm sorry, I have to let her in. Lucy's going to be a part of this.
Oh, we're not cutting this out. No,
I know.
I love that. Life in Hawaii with Hoku and her dog. It's perfect.
It's totally distracting me from my concentration, though. And now I have to give her a treat because she's a good girl and she went outside. My good girl. Well, and like FYI, Lucy means light, so we're just adding a little light to the conversation.
There we go. She's very cute. She's a little like me.
There we go. A TREAT. Okay, now back to...
You get the shit you put up with.
Yes. Yeah. Well, because, okay, so when you don't choose your life and everything just comes at you, and you don't decipher what's for you and what's not, then you just get what it is. Because you have no standard for anything. You have no choice in it. You said, okay, this is the person that shows up. I just have to deal with this person. And we're like, if you want to, but not really. And that's the problem, is that people don't think they have the opportunity to choose. But in lack of choosing, you're choosing by default. I think, Abraham Hicks talks about this a lot, about choosing by default. Because whatever you're allowing is, well, they're saying it doesn't mean it's conscious, because a lot of it is really unconscious. But again, it's like if you're present in the room and it's happening around you, you're allowing it. I mean, as a free adult, that's pretty much the case. But in that, and I've had this conversation with a lot of my clients where people have this conversation that's just horrible going on in their head. And I'm like, okay, take all of that information and put it as a person talking to you on your couch. Do you want that person in your house? It's like they're telling you horrible things. And it's like, I get there's a lot of, and if there was any work part of this, our deprogramming the way we were meant to feel that got locked in by trauma and fear, that's the worst of it. But the truth is that if it feels bad, it's not who you really are, and you can let it go. Now, I can say that really easily, and sometimes it's an easy process just by saying, I'm willing to let this go. I'm willing to let go of the idea that I'm not good enough, or I might be too much, or not enough, or whatever other thing we've got going on. Sometimes you can do it that way, but sometimes you got to hit it from every single angle. It's like, when it's like, I can feel all good, and then somebody will trigger me at an old thing I didn't even know was there anymore. It's like, oh, what did I get triggered by? Oh, because I sleep at different hours and the rest of the world has this set way of being. I got triggered by that because somebody's like, well, if you were up early, and I'm just like, I'm so tired of getting dogged because I have a different schedule. Like, that just seems so bizarre to me that people would even care what I do. You know what I mean?
Judgment. Right,
yeah, well, the judgment of it, but it's also in limitation, as if it should be a certain way, right? you know? And it's like, but why do people even do that? You know, because they're trying to justify their own being and be right in it. And that's what the invitation is. Guess what? You get to be right all day in your true being. And you don't have to worry about what everybody else is doing. You know, because people start corresponding with you instead of, you know, reactiveness towards each other. Or, you know, and a lot of times our relationships help us move through things. You know, they become a mirror. They become an opportunity to see what's there. I told you, like, one of the relationships I had was half good and half working our stuff out. You know, we'd have not necessarily corresponding issues, but like his issues would bump up against mine and trigger them. And it's like, you know, it's really easy to look at the other person and say, hey, it's your fault for this. It's the challenge really is look at yourself and say, where is stuff landing on me? And can I let that go and realize I might be different than my thoughts, because my thoughts are old and based in the mundane world. What if I really, you know, was, you know, what if there was no design flaw? What if I'm exactly right? What if I'm meant to be who I am? What would that allow for me now?
Well, and two things. Being right, I want to talk about that real quick. Being right in your true being, like you just said, and being right all day long and being right in your rightness of being, in your divinity, that's different than being right in your small self.
Well, that's ego rightness. That's being, like, right? You know, like that's justification. That's proving things. That's being, you know, I want to say crabs in a bucket. You know, it's trying to be better than somebody by putting them down or saying you're right or, you know, like whatever. And it's like, it's not, you know, that's not what we're moving into. We're moving into a mutually cooperative space where there's opportunities for interactions at a level of fulfillment instead of this dogging each other for placement or for, you know, it's odd. It's become like fun. Like people go in on people for fun, and it's like that feels like the wrong direction to me. It feels like you're going more and more into less than love, and it's like I don't want to do that. I want to move in the landscape of love, freedom, and unlimited being. That's where your divinity lives, and that's the opportunity now. You know, and a lot of people aren't going to, like, you would say this to them, and they'd be like, hooey, you know, but that's not who I'm talking to. I'm talking to the people who it's becoming alive in them and they want support and guidance in knowing it's true. And it's like, yeah, you get to create your life. That's what this whole thing is about. You know, you go through all of the experiences of the world to you know, fortify who you are, who you're not, but sometimes it fortifies who you're not. You know, I always thought that I have to play this game because I'm never going to survive if I don't, you know, and it was a moving target all the time. It's like, okay, I've got to keep doing this. And until I became an adult and got on my own and like, you know, and then I like went freedom crazy and just did whatever I wanted to do. But they're saying they wish I'd do that again. Like I want to go freedom crazy again and just do whatever I want to do. But it's from a love perspective now. You know, I don't want to, well, for me it's mostly I don't want to be angry anymore. I mean, anger does tell you care about something, but I don't want to live in it. You know, I want to live in caring about the thing instead.
Right, which is that is the walking it forward.
I know. I'm well aware I'm going all over the place. Just so you know, just so
that's
you know,
what this is for,
listeners know. This is how I channel with you because I'm more of a straight line when I'm talking to clients because we're talking about them. We're talking about broad strokes and openings up in this kind of new way. But I want you to know, and for anybody who's listening, it's like this is already opening up. This is like if you aren't aware of, you know, the shifting that's occurring with you. And if we had to say, you know, an A to B kind of thing, it's like being who you really are in the new potential. You know, it's like that's what we're really looking at. And they're saying, and regardless of your spiritual beliefs or whatever, you can do that. But it's kind of like letting go of the limitation of the past, letting go of the judgment of the past, letting go of the fears of the past. And those were things that we used all the time, every day, in every kind of way. And it's like now when you decide you don't want to participate with that, it gets to be a new thing. But it gets to be they're like a new thing because you're unpracticed at it. You're unfamiliar with it. But that's why it feels so good now, because when you do have those connected spaces, it's like, oh yeah, this is what we're talking about. This is that space. And it makes you want to have less. Yeah. Well, and again, that's the spiritual discipline. It's like, oh, not only does this feel good, this feels really good. Like, that's how you know how aligned you are in anything at any time. It's like, and if it's not, then there's something that can be let go of. Now, sometimes it's just cleaning things up too, and I don't mean to go backwards, but it's like, we evolve ourselves. We're evolving, who is it? Bashar always talks about evolving definitions of things. And I like that because cool. It's like, instead of saying work as, this drudgery that we have to do, the work is the spiritual discipline, which is only noticing where we are. I mean, I love that my guides ask for, they call them subtle actions, which is, like noticing. That's a subtle action. Like, willing to let go is a subtle action. Choosing is a subtle action. I mean, these are not heavy lifting things, but to know that you have the power and that, we have to start gaining stability in knowing who we are and knowing it is right. Because even if you don't know that, you can still choose it and then start, walking that path forward to knowing it. But I also feel, and you said you brought up mental health earlier, it's like, a lot of the mental health things are those misunderstandings playing out as fortified ways of being and coping. Because there's what happened and then we made it mean and the coping with it and then the world at large. And, there's all these layers of things that come up. And it's like we can get really lost in that. And it can manifest in ways that are challenging. But it's like for anyone and everyone, I always feel like there's potential to evolve forward, and it's like from wherever you are. Because even, with mental illness, with physical, challenges or whatever people go through, we didn't come here to stay stagnant and okay the whole time. That would be so boring. Right. And I know that we want to stay well, but the truth is that your body supports you in triggering your knowing. Because, sometimes it'll take you down when you are going in the wrong direction. Or if you've shoved things down so much and it manifests as something, else, it's like it's an opportunity to clean it up. That's it. It doesn't have to be this thing. And then, again, there's people who come in knowing that their life is going to be about an unwellness. But then it's the adventure of having that, and it is. We don't come in, it's like, okay, I'm going to be, I'm sure somebody says, like a white guy that's rich and doesn't have to do anything. And, it's like, but that doesn't mean, again, they're saying it's like, yeah, people come in like that. That doesn't mean they don't have challenges or that, right. It's like, but it doesn't matter who you came in as to know it as exactly right. And then go from there and say, okay, well, if I'm exactly right, then I want this and I want that. And I want to have that clarity of being. I want to have that knowing. I want to have that fulfillment. And we're like, yes, 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 yes. Keep pointing yourself in that direction and walking yourself forward and aligning with that thing and having the feel-good spaces and choosing more. And that's the adventure of the next part of this.
I had to let that land. Sorry. I had to leave the space so you could trim that one for a YouTube clip later. That was awesome.
Did I answer the last question?
That was amazing. Well, the last one that I had was more about surrender. It was kind of a different topic, but it was like surrendering to your highest good and how that doesn't always look how you think it will. Because, again, the thoughts are...
Well, and honestly, I mean, I do love this because it's part of where I am at now. Because when I bump into things that I know are old things, whether, whether they're fear-based, whether they're judgments I've made on myself or from others, anything that comes up that feels bad, it's like it is that knowing of it. But there's a lot in the new that I don't know. Like, I always say I want better than I can even imagine, because that's what they keep telling me. It's like what we have next at the next level is better than you can imagine, because we've only been living in, what we've been living in so far. And it doesn't seem as great as it could be, right? So the new potential is just to be in that. And I say, I'll say what I want, but then I surrender it, and I surrender it up to my highest good. And I have a belief in supportive, the rest of the all that is as supportive, whether you call it God or angels or, the universe or whatever. It's like,
right.
I believe I am part of that all that is, and therefore I get to connect into it. And I think that's one of the benefits of what's next, is this cooperative, nature that will naturally occur as we become more loving as ourselves and interactive from there. But again, it's like, we've had such an emphasis on how we be in the world in the old way. And it's like, this is more about knowing who you are and just kind of, gently walking it forward as you align. It's kind of, they're showing me, it's like, I think they use this description in business, it's like turning around a ship. It's not one step. And, and they're saying this is also why people call it work. But it is the spiritual discipline to know who you are and who you're not, and really not oblige anything that's not you. And again, that's the part where it's like, we're not used to saying, no, thank you, I'm not interested. We're not even used to saying no. You know what I mean? It's like, we're trying to accommodate the world constantly, and it's time for us to be who we are and start aligning with the world that accommodates us and not putting up with less than. That's why I always say, it's like, I don't like boundaries because you have to keep them. I like standards because they sit and they hold their own.
Oh, I love that. I love the differentiation there so much.
Well, if you have a standard for something, but it's also the opportunity for you to fulfill for yourself. I only want people who love, honor, appreciate, and accept me fully. Well, guess what? You get to practice that then. You get to say it for yourself. But in that, there's a fulfillment that exists, and then it does become the standard. Because again, you won't let people who are less than loving to you in your life. Or if you do, you will, enlighten them, perhaps. I don't know. But it's basically, we're going to find who we match and who we don't match. It's not that we do interact. They're saying, it's so funny. This is a different way than they've said it before. They're saying we're interacting now at a level of potential. And the potential is for you to be who you are so powerfully, it invites other people up to their true knowing. Or vice versa. I'm saying it in a way that acts like, we're ahead of everybody. But I get called up to, better behavior all the time. I see people who are actually loving and kind and just have like sweetness in their soul. I still have a little acid in, or I shouldn't say that, not in my soul, in my stomach perhaps. But, it's like I'm still learning how to be in alignment with myself. But that's okay. Like, that's what we do. We learn to evolve into the new, what next thing we want. And that's, again, I feel like we've been so, you should be this way, and somebody pointing their finger at us, that we've kind of gotten stunned in that. Like, I want to try to be okay according to the rest of the world. And I want to say that's a futile desire. Because, you can't. And why would you? I don't want to align with the rest of the world. I want to align with the people who are aligned with me. And they're saying, I'm saying it as if it's a choice. That's what happens. That's law of attraction. At every level, we line up with what we're ready to align with. When you see signs, when you have things repeated in your life, when you have knowings that occur and occur again, it's like, yeah, that's where you are. If you have things you're bumping into, guess what? That's where you are too. But notice that. and notice where you are and notice how you feel about it and start to differentiate. They're doing the garage sale thing to me. It's funny, you know, I'm moving, so I'm separating my things out, and it's like, okay, that gets thrown, that gets donated, and this I want to keep. And it's like, but we, you know, we want to, oh, they're saying Marie Kondo. You know, do I love this thing in my life? And if you don't love it, throw it out. Yeah. Well, and they're saying, speak of surrender again, because sometimes I get overwhelmed with everything and I just surrender it all. And I say, just show me the way. You know, but it's my way of kind of alleviating the heaviness of having to do anything. And they're saying I'm still not used to being in the get to zone all the time because, you know, there's things to do. And because I've had this habit of accumulating those on top of me instead of noting, oh, okay, that stuff will get done because that's how it rolls, you know. They're saying it's an opportunity to shift that potential into something that feels better. That's how you evolve it. You say, oh, moving, bad, hard work, troublesome. Now, moving, easy, peaceful, flowing, taken care of, you know. Doesn't change it in the moment, but when you start moving and move into that potential, well, they're saying I just said that wrong. It does change it in the moment because you're not in the suffering of, oh, it might be bad. And I know I've done that a lot of, you know, oh, this, you know, this might not be fun. It's like, but I've let it flow, and it's been, they're saying I'm going to say this wrong. It's been flowing in a way that feels easier than it ever has. And I still have a little bit of, like, you know, stuff to do on me. But I could let that go now, too. Okay, I'm willing to let that go. Have it be easy, peaceful. You know, and this is, again, I'm air quoting, the work is being where you want to be. You know? And that's not like a job. That's an opportunity, you know? The opportunity is to be where you're going to be. Are you going to get off track? Absolutely. Things are going to anger you. You're going to get sad. But then take the opportunity there. What does it tell you? I care about this thing. There's more clarity to be had here. You know? I can choose something more. I can choose something different. I can be something different in this. I can be more powerful. I can be more clear. I can be more authentic. I can be more, you know. And not as a have to, as a get to. I get to be more powerful. I get to be more loving. You know, it gets to be bigger, better, more.
What a perfect place to wrap up and say yay us.
Oh, that was a wild ride. Thank you.
That was so great. Oh my God.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. And
Thank you.